Hello, and welcome back to yet another live episode of Green and White, brought to you by Argyle Life. Argyle returned from the longest away day in the Football League with an unexpected but well-deserved point, as Nathaniel Ogbeta did his finest Aguero impression as he bagged his first goal in green. 4 points from a possible 6 against the Black Cats even mean that we've picked up just over 18% of our points against them this season. Joining me to discuss the 2-2 draw up at the Stadium of Light. Ben, how's things? You're back.
I am really dredging the barrel today to get folks on to talk, aren't you? I'm not too bad, thanks, mate. Obviously,
much like a midweek fixture, we had somebody else lined up, but they pulled out, so had to get you in, haven't we?
Absolutely. Not match fit, but able to stand in at emergency notice.
No, we appreciate it. From one team in Devon, James, how's things?
Very good, thank you. Very good. Nice to feel some semblance of positivity on a Sunday for once.
Yeah, it's nice, isn't it? And Sam, we also, well, not all of us, but some of us would have seen the video. You celebrated that late equaliser like it was a win, and yet you still couldn't treat us to a little bit of makeup and a wig.
Yeah, but it wasn't a win, was it? So here I am. The terms were very clear, very clear.
Disappointing. Well, it's almost as if different people have different views on the same subject, which I'm sure we'll get on to also later. Sam, whilst you're unmuted, why don't you just give us your customary match run through, and also I'm sure you're going to tell us what time you got home anyway, so do that as well.
Yeah, I got in my bed pretty much to the minute 24 hours after my alarm set off in the morning. I set my alarm at 1:45 a.m. Saturday morning for a 2:35 pickup for Madden Roundabout, and I pretty much got, by the time I got dropped off and got home and got back into my bed, it was 1:45 the next morning. So pretty much bang on a 24-hour day for me. Our driver had to go to and from St Austell as well. Obviously both the morning and the evening. So for him, it was about a 26-hour day. The game, much better for sure, without a shadow of a doubt. Can't deny that at all. We were superb actually for certainly the second half. First half, very little happened at either end, if I'm honest, which, don't get me wrong, that's an improvement on being absolutely torn open and being battered. But we were very much, I think, going from the viewpoint of get the defence sorted first and the rest can come later. You often hear, not all managers, I know that in it, they some are a lot more focused on attack, but you hear a lot of managers say get the defence done first and all the rest, it's secondary. And I think that first half was purely defence first. We didn't really have a great deal of chances, but we were so compact, so good with our pressing of them, that nor did they really have any good chances either. And in fact, probably the one time we did come close is when their keeper got caught a bit off his line and Randell decided to have a dig. Just didn't quite get enough power, get enough uplift on the shot for that. But we'll
talk about the Randell digs later.
Yes, yeah, we will. So second half, we came out, and I think we were not, going gung-ho. We were still frustrating Sunderland, but I think Morgan Whittaker might have said to them at half-time, just, maybe try and be a bit more proactive on the counter, maybe take a little bit more risk here and there, which we did. We had a very big chance near the start of the second half, which was obviously the Ryan Hardie header, gets across goal, and I would think it was Bundu put the cross, and I can't quite remember Bundu. Yeah, it was kind of don't get me wrong, it wasn't a bad cross at all, but I think ideally you wanted maybe a little bit higher just so we can get that perfect connection on it. But he still should have at least got it on target, if not should have scored. He just didn't get the timing right on the head at all. And then from that comes our goal. Obviously going one in quite bizarre fashion. Again, good work from Randell, gets it into the box. It kind of drops a little bit, and then the ball comes in, Hardie, and then it comes back out again. and Hardie obviously gets that little bit angled with the Sunderland goalkeeper Patterson, who just sort of lets it under his body and almost diverts it. And I know it got given his own goal. I think to be honest,
did it? That I was going to ask whether it was actually given as an own goal or not. I think it was.
Yeah, it was given. Honestly, I'm not sure. I think there's a chance. It's tough to judge the angle because Patterson gets the touch so quickly, so it's tough to really judge the trajectory of where it's going. But I think there is a chance it might just be going in anyway if he doesn't save it. So I think Ryan Hardie will be arguing that's his goal all day long, but officially it's not. We barely had a chance to celebrate before they went up the other end and scored. I was celebrating so much I wasn't even thinking about the consequences for the podcast. We got brought back down to earth quite quickly after that. Obviously the air ball comes in. I think marking not great. Obviously, Puach doesn't quite get the header in the air again, similar to Hardie in the attacking sense. Puach in the defensive sense just completely misjudged the timing of the header. And then Pleguezuelo isn't really tight on Ilsador as he'd like to be. Did a very good run of form, but that was a little bit of a lax bit of marking for Pleguezuelo, I think. And Ilsador just taps it in. Nothing Hazard can do. And then the absolute, certainly to the eye test, at least, I don't know if this is backed up by statistics, is the best chance of the game was the Callum Wright one. Adam Randell, who only passes backwards and sideways, released Callum Wright with a fantastic raking ball over the top. Another big chance created from him, who then got one-on-one with Patterson, and it's not a bad finish. I know you probably can't say it was a great finish because a great finish goes in, but he gets it so close. He gets it away from the keeper. He doesn't pull it wide. It's a half an inch, isn't it? The width of the post away from nestling in. It's so close to being a perfect finish, but just a little bit too far the wrong side. But again, at that point, we've had two big chances on our goal. We should be leading, but from being almost in front, I arguably should have been in front. Sunderland then go up the other end. Obviously, the free kick, foul from Sorinola, then goes out to the edge of the box, and just nobody really picks him up. I think maybe Callum Wright, not his finest 5 minutes, and just missing that sitter. I think it was Callum Wright who doesn't quite go out to the player. I don't know, can't remember. Hume it was. He scored the second goal. Callum Wright just doesn't quite go out to him quick enough, and he has the chance to pick the whole range of the goal, and it goes into the corner. I did think in real time that Hazard was a little slow diving for it, but looking at it again, I'm not going to hold that against him because he was really unsighted, and also even if he had dived, it's a really good finish. It's right in the corner. I don't think you can really expect him to get there. So again, two goals which you can't really blame Hazard for after the shot's been taken.
Zach says it pretty well in the comments about, you must be the only person who could be drunk yet remember the entire day. If you think Hazard was slow to that, I think it might have just been a bit of a haze in your eyes.
As you can clearly hear from the fact that I didn't change my view after watching the highlights. Not all of the recollection is perfect, but it's passable enough. So then at that point, we're 2-1 down, despite I think genuinely being the better team, certainly in terms of chance creation. Don't get me wrong, Sunderland were the better team in terms of possession, control of territory, but in terms of actually purely what could you expect to go in from the chances created, I think we were the better team of the two, but we were losing. But thankfully, we had one more big chance to equalise that at the end, which we did. Gives really good play from quite a few players. Tijani picks up the ball well. Obviously, lays it out to I think Sorinola. Ball goes in. JB gets a little nod down. Not quite sure he knows where it's going, but he's got to win the header. And he does win the header. JB gets the flick down, and there he is at the back post. Nathaniel Ogbeta with his first goal for the club. Lovely finish, tough finish, by the way. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that it was some kind of miraculous goal, but I think probably you don't expect certainly a wing back to finish from the tightness of the angle. Goalkeeper's making himself big, but he slots it in perfectly. We got the point that we absolutely deserved, at least a point, in the sense that it would have been a travesty if we came over nothing. But I think, to be honest, the only real chance I can remember Sunderland having, for all their nice tippy-tappy build-up play, and that's not derogatory, it was good build-up play, but the only chances it really produced of note were their 2 goals, a couple of other sort of long-range ones maybe, but nothing really to write home about. And we had obviously our 2 goals and 2 other big chances, so that we were the better team in the game. So what did I say on that post, on that when I was in my angry rant post Burnley? All I wanted to see was a little bit more pride, a little bit more coherence, a little bit more determination, not just heads dropping down when things get tough. And that was exactly what we got, and far more so. So not only did we get that improvement, but we got even more than I thought we would get in terms of the quality was there. And the early signs of Muslic's pressing game were there as well. So I'm not going to get too carried away. It is still early days. We are still, of course, 1 win in 20 league games, winless in 15.
Come on.
We are still marooned at the bottom of the championship, still almost certainly going to go down. So I'm not going to pretend that everything's rosy in the garden, but I kind of wonder if that Burnley was our rock bottom moment, and this is the first sort of sign of punching back up and showing signs of life again. And I think it may well be that that's the case. And much better performance, good result, and hopefully we can just start converting that into wins in the near future.
It's impressive that it takes multiple 5-0 defeats, a 6-1 defeat, multiple 4-0 defeats for it to be finally hit rock bottom, isn't it? Sam, is that the first time a left back scored their first goal for Argyle since Adam Lewis up at Sunderland?
Sorry, what's the question? Is that the last time?
I don't really know what the question is. Anyway.
Sunderland away.
Yeah,
I guess probably yes, but that's such a ridiculously limited criteria. It would be amazing if that wasn't the case.
Oh, sorry, Mr. remembers everything. James, Sam touches on it there, but when Muslic came in, we were all hyped and we were ready to run through brick walls and etc. etc. Like this really felt like the first real Muslic performance, didn't it?
Yeah, it felt like day one of Muslic really, and obviously he's had to navigate so many games in such a short space of time. It also kind of feels crazy that if anyone at board level thought that we were going to hit the ground running on a manager with a completely different style of football. He keeps saying that he's had more games and training sessions, that we were going to make this click within immediately. Then it just shows how naive that was really. So yeah, it felt like the first Muslic era performance. The press was fantastic for the most part. The intelligence I thought in the second half, especially the intelligence of the press was spot on as well. It wasn't kind of you could see the sort of trigger and players were hunting in packs and cutting passing lanes and swarming the ball sort of in an organised way and then dropping back in when required. So yeah, it felt like the first time that we've seen his philosophy in action. But I guess it's interesting with the team selection that it's taken, dropping big name players, some of our flair players, some of our best, undeniably best players in terms of creativity, and returning to once again for the second year running the promotion season stalwarts to come in and show the fight and the heart and the desire that he's been talking about for so long. So the first of the Muslic era, but what does it say about the players at his disposal? What does it say about the heart of the sort of original nucleus of the team? And what does it say about what we have now?
I actually think nobody could do better with this group of players. Actually, James, I think that was the line that we were everybody was saying not that long ago. Ben, I'm not sure how much of this you watched, because obviously, like we've already said, you're a last minute substitution into the pod. But as I mentioned in the intro, 4 points from 6. Can we play them every week?
Yeah, it's it was a massively improved performance. I didn't see the game live. I listened to it and I watched the highlights, and it sounded night and day to the Burnley game, which unfortunately I did watch. But I think that sometimes you get a reaction, and it can be misleading. I think when Foster came in, he got a reaction. Things changed. We were all really excited. He was manager of the month, if I remember correctly. And then sort of things set in badly. When Rooney came in, things weren't, obviously they started awfully, but we had that purple patch where we were playing we beat Sunderland at home, as you referenced just then. We also was at Big Blackburn, Luton, and we were thinking, oh, well, maybe that, personally, what I thought was coming might not be coming. It did eventually. So I think we need to be a little bit cautious that we don't get too carried away too early yet again, because things do go up and down. Le Bris did change his style, his tactics, his formation slightly, rather, which was a bit of a weird one. I think kind of played into our hands. Looking at the setup, was more defensive. I feel like, given that we were the worst defence in the league, he should have hammered at us and made the best use of the attacking talent he's got. I don't know if he thought maybe going a bit more defensive would be, because we had nothing going forward, it would be a safer way of playing, which was maybe a bit arrogant. So I wouldn't, try and suggest that was really what he was doing. But yeah, it was like you say, probably two of our best performances, or at least best two halves. The second half in the first game and the second half in this game, I think, were arguably two of our best 45 minutes of the season. So it's unfortunate for Sunderland that they got those 2 45 minutes. It might affect the run in at the top, and it might affect the run in at the bottom. We'll have to see what those 4 points do for us, and the 5 points that they didn't get does for them. But there are other games where, if we put in the 45 minutes, for example, or if we put in the 90 minutes, for example, in the first game of the season against Sunderland yesterday, they'd have absolutely smashed us in the same way that Wednesday did. So yeah, I don't think there was any deficiencies really in Sunderland, other than maybe Le Bris having a bit of a galaxy brain. I just think Argyle were good, and the proof will be in the pudding. We all really hope that this is the real deal, that Myron appears to be talking the talk, and it looks like he's beginning to walk the walk and getting the responses from the attitude changes, the confidence back, which I think was the biggest issue. Self-confidence. I was there for the QPR game, and when the goal went in, the players just seemed to shrink an inch each. Even Bundu and Sissoko, who were warming up, or were about to come on about 5-10 minutes later, just seemed to, they were laughing, they were joking. When the QPR goal went in, they just completely looked like someone had told them their mum had died or something. It was crazy how deflated and sad they looked, and sort of gone from being, with the chest puffed out to sort of shrunk. So I feel like the confidence, he's instilling a bit of confidence again, giving that belief again. Just got to hope that carries on. That's not like a false dawn, as we've seen a couple of times with recent appointments.
Yeah, I don't know if any of you got anything to add on team selection. Obviously, big money in Beidou and Al Haj both dropped to the bench.
Yeah,
Sissoko doesn't seem to fit anywhere. Obafemi nowhere to be seen. I don't know if anybody's got any thoughts on that.
Yeah, I'll wade in. I looked at the starting 11, and I think half of them, as James has already mentioned, started in League One for us. The rest of them came in last season, apart from two, which was Pukac, who has been here too short a time to really tell what he is, but looks like he's got the mentality that we need. And the other one was Paulson, who I think, with all respect, as well as he's played in a few games, we'd all much prefer to see anybody but, and is very much the last resort, which isn't to take away from some of the good things he did yesterday in other games. But, you've effectively got a new guy who the jury's out on, and Paulson, who the only two players rather who who weren't from last season or from League One. One is too soon to, the jury's out on, too soon to draw a conclusion on, and the other one is, we'd really, really not like to have in the team. Everybody on the bench was either, you had Isaka and Roberts, who are obviously graduates of the academy. Everyone else was players who've come in since last season, so this season in one of the two windows. And that's worrying, I think, in terms of the trend. Now, obviously, Beidou has been in an off-season, essentially, and is working back to fitness, but Al-Haj hasn't been and is up to fitness. I just feel like that's a little bit worrying. And as James says, that's sort of like the lineup. We didn't have, for example, Beidou or Al-Haj's skill on the pitch, which is no denigration to Cal Wright. I suspect he'd admit that he's not got that flair, but we had the physicality that he brings. So, I think that maybe that's what he wants from his team. Maybe it's just as simple as that. It's not a slight on the mentality of the players. Maybe he wants some physicality, certainly in that game against Sunderland, who are a big team. Maybe we'll return to a more League One style of football with more physical players, and therefore the League One players are more suited to that. But it is a bit worrying that was the lineup, as James has mentioned, and a bit of an indictment, I think, on the policy of all the transfers that have come in the last 12 months. Well, since the summer, I should say, and in this window thus far. I think this past summer's transfer window has been a write-off, and we really, really, really need the club to pull something out of the bag this window, because we're -3 bodies now if you include Galloway's injury. That's maybe a bit unfair, but yeah, we sort of lost 5 players and brought in 2. So it's not looking good, and I really feel like we need we need to see some more of those players doing something that we're getting out of the League One, the old guard, if you want to call them that. We need to see them, now that we've set a tone, coming in and adding to that rather than just being the supplementary. And if they don't want to play, if there is some kind of attitude problems that has been referred to, I know that was well covered on the last pod, so I'm not going to dredge up those comments again. Then let's give Muslic a clean broom and let him start again.
A few people mentioned it in the comments, Ben, about your place being haunted. You haven't moved into Peter Swan's old house, have you?
What?
You have. I feel sorry for your pets.
It wasn't me. It wasn't me. Who was clattering.
Oh, okay.
No, it wasn't me. No.
Okay, it's not haunted then.
We'll have
Can't
to play
confirm nor deny. Fair enough. You said on multiple occasions there, as James said, and as you know, I can't multitask, so sorry if we went over the same thing twice there. Always professional.
No, it's more me not answering your question really on the lineup and using it to make an alternative point. So not your fault, mate. Me waffling as normal.
Yeah, as per. I don't know if you guys want to pick out a player each. Sam, obviously our beloved Adam Randell, more so me than you, but the doubters were quiet yesterday, weren't they?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I want to say that I'm not completely a blind defender of Adam Randell, because I do agree he has had some quite poor games lately, but I'm not going to pretend not to be a bit biased, because I absolutely love him as a footballer. He exemplifies everything I like about football. He has a bit of everything. He has the tenacity, the pressing,
But you only like him because he's from Plymouth, right? So
no, not at all. Not at all. But he also has that bit of flair at times. He has that nice raking ball over the top. He has a lovely pass out wide to the wide areas. And it's a great dead ball delivery at times. Not that we too often see it, but I think the one thing with him is that he absolutely never lets his head drop, even when he has absolutely terrible games, like in that first half against Burnley. In the second half, he was really the one trying to drive it forward and force an equaliser. He threaded that through for Bundu within moments of getting in. And sorry about it to Darko JB, but Randell plays a lot better when he's not having to do the job of 2 players. Having Houghton next to him made an enormous help. But yeah, and as per the comments, according to Wayne Rooney, Adam Randall's better at free kicks than Wayne Rooney himself. I'm not even sure Adam Randall himself or his mum or his girlfriend would agree with that statement, in all honesty. But he can certainly be good at free kicks on his day, even if he's not quite as good as Wayne Rooney. But yeah, honestly, if I were a football manager, I think I'd take Adam Randall everywhere. It's like Harry Redknapp and Nico Crankyard. That would be me with Adam Randall if I were a manager. But he had a fantastic game yesterday. Really barely put a foot wrong as far as I can see. Sure, there might have been one or two passes that went a little bit off, but certainly not many and not badly wrong at all. I would want to say with him, pinpoint some moments. Just his general play was really good, just driving the ball forward, forced a couple of corners, just threw great balls into the channels, battled well in the air. For someone who's relatively short and not exactly built like a brick proverbial, he is very good at winning duels, both on the ground and aerial. And the two real moments, it was him that put that really dangerous ball in that forced a panic clearance for the Hardie goal/own goal. It was Randall to put the ball in, it then got cleared out to Hardie. And that ball over the top for Callum Wright is possibly the best pass I've seen from an Argyle player this season. And it really deserved an assist because he was deep into his own half, and he just put it through magnificently on an absolute sixpence for Wright. So yeah, really good. And it's part of them paying tribute to Randall. I would say that as much as that, it is genuinely down to his own credit. He was massively helped by having Jordan Houghton next to him. So I'll hand the baton over to, I think, someone else who wants to talk a bit more about Houghton's performance.
Yeah, James, quite a few in the comments as well saying, having Houghton alongside him was brilliant. Rosa Kernis says Houghton deserves all the plaudits. Monster Green, Houghton made the difference. He sat in and just allowed Randall to push us forward. Yeah, I can't really disagree with any of that. It's good to see him back, and I think he's been almost criminally underused this season, hasn't he?
I think if we're going to talk about Randall's great game, you have to talk about what Houghton's role in that was, because obviously when JB's been in, it's been up to Randall to play the more holding role. It was also utilised in the sort of build-up under Rooney, where he would come short to receive the ball and turn, and kind of placed him more as a kind of deeper lying central midfielder, where if you actually look at the average positions for yesterday against Sunderland, Houghton is by far the deepest lying midfielder, and that's allowed Randall to move further up the pitch. So obviously we're only looking at a sample size of one, but on that evidence, allowing Randall to express himself more clearly, have a bit more time on the ball, use the ball, drive with the ball, and pick passes, start to actually do what we want to see from Randall, which is actually run the game rather than, well, he certainly did that in the second half, where things are going through him and he's starting to make the team tick. That seems like a much more preferable role for Randall. But obviously the secret to that was a very tidy performance from Houghton. He's obviously understood, taken on what Muslic wants at the team. He executed his role within the press fantastically. Won balls, which I have been a Houghton critic in the past and have felt that that's not been the case at this level since the promotion season when he's been on the pitch. But he certainly, if this style of play and the instructions and system under Muslic favours him, then let's hope to see so much more of him. Because if this sample size of one becomes something for the rest of the season, then we've unearthed the central defensive midfielder we've been asking to sign all season, and he was here all along, warming at the bench.
Ben, there's one more name that a lot of people are mentioning. Sorinola, Lee Newson. Sorinola outstanding again. Just Tijani said, I'm glad Sorinola finally got recognition for his constant graft and got player of the match. I won't read the rest of that out. Rob, Sorinola was man of the match yesterday, putting a shift. Lazy Lunatic 13. No, wrong comment. Harold says Sorinola for me. Just Tijani, we've got a Sorinola. Obviously, can't talk too much on yesterday itself, but he's recently been brilliant, hasn't he? One of the first names on the team sheet for me.
Yeah, and he's always put in a shift, in my opinion. I know he divides opinion in our pod group chat, and I was suggesting I'd mock up a Sorinola apology form for some of the members, given his recent performances, because I've been a staunch defender of him, and I don't think he's ever blindingly amazing where he just takes your breath away, but he does do what he did yesterday. He always tries, even when it's not going right. He stands up and is counted, and thankfully a lot more has been going right than wrong in recent weeks, and that's to his credit, because he could have very easily been, under several managers. I'm not first choice. I'm going to down tools. I'm not going to put 100% in. But he's always there. He's always come on when he's needed to, and played the substitute role, and now is doing really well in the starting lineup. And I think that yes, I am falling in love with Polish Tim. I'll give you a rendition of my Robin Hood Polish Tim chant later, chat if you want it. But yeah, I think he adds a lot to this team, and I think, as has been said, mentality is a bigger as big an asset as skill in football, because skill and ability are great when things are going well, but when things aren't going well, you need mentality and heart. And at times you'll need one, and at times you'll need the other. If you've got both, that's great. But sometimes if you've got a squad like we have that maybe has players with some and players with the other, then in times like this where we're in the trenches, these are the players you remember and that you really value and you look back on with heart. And it's interesting that Whittaker's just gone. There's a lot of furore about that. A player who's got obviously immense natural talent. It's a nice time to. It's a nice time to think about. It's a nice time to think about some of our players that fans really dig out just because perhaps they're not got the best ability, but are trying hard. I mean, even like Nat Ogbeta getting the goal. I mean, in no way saying that Nat Ogbeta's been a good signing for us or put in particularly good performances, but he tries. He is trying when he's on the pitch. I mean, his interview was very heartfelt after the game, and I've got no problem with people saying about any player, I don't think they're good enough or they've had a bad game. But when people sort of like it's personal and nasty and get out of my club, etc., for players who are trying their hardest, and now it was really nice for Nat Ogbeta to get the equalising goal yesterday, because another player who, again, sort of like the players will come out to warm up and everyone will get a clap and Ogbeta will walk, jog down towards a Devonport and it's just dead silent. I mean, they're not stupid, are they, footballers? As much as we like to, the cliche, he knows how he's perceived by the fan base, and yet he turns up and he tries, and he was there to come on when called upon, and you saw it meant a lot to him when he scored. So I think I'd really like the fan base to, as a whole, to sort of start embracing those players who try hard, aren't necessarily the most gifted and the most skillful, and who are certainly right now working really hard to dig us out of a hole, because we could have a team full of really gifted players and it's all gone wrong under the last manager, and now we're seeing Burnley performance after Burnley performance after Burnley performance because they've got all the skill and no heart, and we go behind and we just drop our heads. We saw it, didn't we, at Cardiff away, etc., that kind of mentality. But there's players on the pitch now who've pulled their socks up proverbially and are going at it, and I think Sorinola epitomises that. I think it's been said by several people in the comments that he's a credit to the club ever since he's come in. And when he wasn't fit, do you remember he got released by his club? He was training, he came in, he could play about 50-60 minutes, then he was absolutely cramping to death, and had to keep getting taken off, but he'd still
remember the celebrations after that first game. I couldn't even tell you who we'd just beaten, but just jumping around like an absolute madman, like celebrating.
Yeah, instantly endeared himself to fans. And
he's not done anything, mate. Like, fair play.
Yeah, he hadn't even played, had he? For as far as I was, he hadn't even come on that game. And that to me as well symbolises Plymouth Argyle in many ways. We've had a lot of players who haven't been the best. We've had a few that have been great and gone on to good things. Even players like Mickey Evans went on to do well in the Premier League for a short spell, etc. But the vast majority of fans' favourites are ones who really tried and who cared. And I feel like if we can go down, if we are going to go down, if that's going to be what comes, but we can go down, if we can go down trying, then players like Sorinola, etc., can hold their heads up high and said, they did everything they could to in this situation. So yeah, it shouldn't be underrated what he does. He's not just a hard worker; he has got skill. Le Fay yesterday, he had some scary moments. He did get booked, but that's a player who's going to be signed for 23 million if Sunderland exercise their option. And Sorinola did. I'd say you could argue it was a 50-50 kind of duel that in the afternoon. That's something. That's not a mean feat. Le Fay will make a lot, inverted commas, better or more respected or more fabled, more storied fullbacks look stupid this season, I'm pretty sure. But yeah, he isn't. He's more than just hard work. He's got skill, and I think sometimes people are too quick to write people off. I'm glad he's getting his chance now, and long may it continue.
To steal the joke from the group chat, you could say he's not worth the fee. I don't know. I can't remember whose that was, but I did laugh at that. So stealing it. Anything to add on the Sunderland game itself specifically before we move on to somebody moving on to
just on a more positive note regarding Puach as well. I want to say that even though I did sort of criticise him a little bit for missing the header for the goal, it's really important to remember that he's not a centre back at all. He's not even really a left back. He's a very attacking left wing back. And I want to say that apart from one or two slightly shaky moments, he really adapted and put a good shift in, playing in something that really wasn't his position at all. So I want to give him credit for that. I think he deserves a special shout out for that. And also, one of the players who up there with Randell and Sorinola was in the top three of our best players, for me, was actually Barley Mumba, who again I think has taken a lot of stick recently. He had a poor error for the recent goal against QPR. He wasn't good against Burnley. Nobody was good against Burnley. But I do think he was back to something like his best form. And what have I always said about him? Play him left wing back in a situation with a back three, and you will absolutely see the best out of him. Now, we may well have a conversation about, is he going to play left wing back going forward? Because Puach is now in, weirdly, that is the one position where we have about 1 million options. We're so stretched everywhere else in the squad. But we could basically make a 6-a-side team out of left wing backs. It's Puach's best position. It's Mumba's best position. It's Ogbeta's best position. We could even play Saxon early there in this setup. Galloway has played there for us. And given how narrow our inside forwards are, it's probably even Sissoko's best position in the setup. We've got a whole team of left wing backs that are stretched in virtually every other area. So as to how much, how many minutes Barley Mumba will get there, I don't know. But I do think I've been vindicated that as much as you might say Barley Mumba is quite high maintenance in the sense that he needs a very specific position in a very specific system to work, when he is played there, he's excellent. Like we saw in the run when he played around the June Snip, he got the goal at Rotherham, the decisive goal that got the 2 points that kept us up, essentially. So really want to give him that shout out on his best role. Got down the line well, moved the ball forward, and made some great passes. So credit to Barley Mumba for that. And yes, when we were chasing the game, as Andrew puts in the comments, he was even briefly moved to centre-back to accommodate Ogbeta in the left wing-back role. And even at centre-back, he performed admirably for the 10 or so minutes he was there. So real credit to Mumba on a positive note. And now we'll move on to talking about somebody who didn't feature for Argyle or Middlesbrough yesterday.
It's a real shame that you mentioned Barley Mumba.
Add on Barley Mumba, though, mate. Add on Barley Mumba. Because if you hadn't tossed me Sorinola, that's who I would have picked, because he's a player who's been linked away currently. Yeah, how dare you? How dare you sort of try and orchestrate the chat as if that's your job or something? But just he's another player who's been getting a lot of stick and who has also made mistakes. And for both of those reasons, his head could drop, given the situation we're in, and especially given that he's been linked with moves away. Now, I don't know if there's any truth in that, but if there was any agitation on his agent's part or any lack of commitment from him, he could easily have not turned up and put the performance in that he did. I think he's been shifted around and was willing to go to centre back again yesterday. So someone who, again, I think is demonstrating the mentality, trying to lift himself, not allowing setback and criticism to get to him. I think he deserves credit for that. As much as he has made mistakes at times this year, he hasn't down tools. He hasn't sort of left. Even if these rumours are true, he's playing for the team. He's made himself available, etc., etc. So I think he deserves a lot of credit for that. He gives 100%, as has been said in the
almost said that's aimed at someone, Ben. even though he's linked away, he always made himself available. That's
yeah. Who knows? There is actually one more thing I want to talk about in regards to, well, not just Sunderland, but the rest of the season, James. Tijani back, obviously off the bench. It's been hampered by hamstring and groin issues all season. Only his fourth Argyle appearance, but he feels huge for this Muslic system, right? As much as I absolutely love Ryan Hardie. It just doesn't feel like it's ever really going to work. And I feel like Tijani might be the answer.
He literally feels huge for the system. Like having that presence is obviously refreshing, offers something different. He was played a big role in the early phase of the equaliser, where his strength and physicality that gets the ball wide out to Sorinola in the first place. So it really does offer us a different dimension. Obviously, wasn't as with Tijani for the whole season. It's still just such an absolutely incredibly small amount of minutes to derive any meaningful opinions from. Like obviously a shocker at Wednesday, and then one off the a less than ideal performance off the bench, and something approaching promising. I can't remember which game that was that he came on in, and then we didn't see him again. So again, fleeting minutes, but he offered something different when he came on. That's what we have been missing. His physicality is just a threat. I feel like it possibly is sort of the same symptomatic of Hardie, where we seem to use strikers to occupy defenders and be a nuisance, so we can create elsewhere rather than those centre forwards being implicit threats in themselves. Didn't really speak about Hardie, but obviously misses the quite tough but free header where he should have hit as Sam said, at least he should have hit a target. Knowing the way his luck is at the moment, if he had hit a target, he would have just hit straight at the keeper. So, we're sort of blessed with strikers that are very good at occupying centre backs but not being massive threats. So obviously we need to see more of that from him. I would like to see more of that sort of athleticism and power he had as part of the press. So let's see that more often. I'm sure we will over the next couple of games, and then we'll have a fairer idea of what kind of player he is and how he fits within the system over more than just cameo appearances.
I don't know how true this is, but Colby says at Circular, Miron Muslic played two up top at times. They had two top strikers when he was doing well there. I've always said I want to see Hardie in a two, and I always feel like maybe it's just a size thing, but I feel like Hardie and Tijani could be a Crouch and Defoe type front two, one running off, the others wins in the air. Unless you guys have got anything else to add, I suppose we. There is actually really quickly, Sam. A comment about Ref Watch. I'm not Joe, so I'm not really that arsed. But if you've got anything quick, and when I say quick, I mean like a couple of sentences. No, good.
Yeah.
Correct.
Actually, I do feel first half he gave a lot their way, just a lot of little soft ones. But second half, I think it was a lot more evenly done. So I don't really get quite the comment. We need to have ref watch for this one, like he was really bad. But I don't think he was. But there were a couple first half that weren't too great.
Yeah, cool. That's enough. Ben, we went up earlier due to the storm. Trained in Newcastle, used Newcastle United's facilities. Is this the way forward? Traveling up even earlier than we normally do. We're constantly trying to find ways to battle this poor away form. Is it just we just need to spend more time away from friends and family, and more time away from the training pitch?
I do probably think there is something to like having everybody knows when you travel somewhere and then you have a sleep and you get up the next day, you're never feeling 100%. So maybe there is a bit of you get the extra day in up there, you're acclimatized a little better. The problem with that comes if we were to genuinely credit it as a potential resolution is that you need to pay people to use their training grounds unless they're feeling incredibly generous. Like if Newcastle are like
huge rivals, where they're like,
exactly.
If you Newcastle can stop someone from winning, you can have it for free. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, that sort of thing, which I imagine was pretty much, I imagine there's something very nominal, if anything at all, given Newcastle's finances currently. And as you say, the rivalry involved, the old friendships between the head coach and the staff at Newcastle. So, we already don't travel in certain ways in certain times because of the cost. So I don't really see it as being feasible unless there's investment or some other way of trialing it and seeing if we get enough results out of it to make it worthwhile to sort of find the budget for it. It could, but it genuinely could, isn't a ridiculous suggestion that sort of given a day to sort of rest and not acclimatise in the sense of, the truest sense of the word, but just to sort of settle in, could be useful.
Moving on then, I'm sure this isn't news to anyone, but Morgan Whittaker has left Plymouth Argyle to join Championship rivals Middlesbrough for an undisclosed fee. The club statement reads, his highlights include his 19 league goals in our first season back in the Sky Bet Championship and his strike that saw Argyle defeat Brentford in the Emirates FA Cup third round just 2 weeks ago. Morgan now moves on to the next stage of his career and heads for the North East. We wish him well for his next chapter. I don't know who wants just initial thoughts. Nice little well-worded question I've got there. Lots of time and effort put into that one. Initial thoughts on the transfer itself and the reported £6 to £8 million fee.
Well, it's not a good fee, is it? And if not, maybe we'll forensically break down the statements and whatever in a minute. But if not for all this acrimony around his departure, we would surely be getting more money, because it's got to the point where we know that, and clubs know that the situation was going to be very difficult to repair after how it's happened, and the fact he was out of the squad, and there was all this toing and froing in the media, etc. So whoever you're blaming for that, whether it's the Argyle side or Whittaker himself side, it's not the fee we should have got, and it's such a shame that it was so shrouded in controversy. In the way it happened. So disappointing. It's yet another player we've let go beyond what their market value should have been, admittedly for differing reasons. Cooper was, coming to the end of his contract and probably fell out with the director of football, allegedly, and all that. You've got, obviously, now Muslic falling out with Whittaker and him, allegedly deciding not to play, or maybe agreeing not to play. We'll come on to that in a minute. So that's two who, for various reasons, have gone below. And obviously Gibson being because he had a low contract clause that Preston met. Now, that one I blame. I think it's the least avoidable of the three, because ultimately with that one, realistically, maybe if we hadn't put that clause in the contract, he wouldn't have signed to begin with. So that one's fair enough. But it's a shame that two of them have gone for far lower value than they should, because they both left, to some extent, quite acrimoniously. Perhaps with Cooper, his argument was more with one individual, whereas with Whittaker, he probably more fell out with a few people. Obviously, Joe Edwards didn't seem too happy with him in his post-match, as we know. I've seen people say what Muslic, Edwards, and Randell had said. I mean, if I'm honest, I wonder if many of the people saying that, Muslic, Edwards, and Randell have actually watched that, because Randell didn't really say a lot, to be honest. He gave a very media-trained answer. Somebody said to him, how do you feel? It must be very difficult. You must feel let down. And he just sort of said something like, yeah, it is what it is. It's difficult, but, the 11 players had to stick together, and then went on to talking about the game. He didn't actually...
Adam Randell doing two jobs again. God.
Yeah, exactly. So, but everyone's saying that Randell had said Whittaker refused to play. He didn't really. He gave a very media-trained answer and brushed over it. Edwards certainly came closer to alluding to that. Edwards said that we need players who are committed, who are willing to play and give it all, which very much implies that he was suggesting Whittaker wasn't going to play. But obviously Randell didn't really say anything of the kind. So I think that statement is a bit inaccurate. But then obviously Muslic outright said he was available for selection, but he didn't turn up. So yeah, obviously the way it's come about, it's very disappointing. We'll obviously focus on Whittaker's statement in a minute, because I do think it's fair that, having forensically analysed the Muslic comments, we do at least give Whittaker the right to reply on this podcast, even if we don't necessarily all, believe him or agree with him. But however it's happened, whoever's to blame, if anybody, the way it's all come out publicly and acrimoniously it's not good at all. And we need to, whatever's going on, we need to get better at addressing these kind of issues internally, because now that's two players who've fell out with club personnel, not played. Wilson's still on the contract. I know Cooper was on the bench at Sheffield Wednesday, whereas Whittaker was out of the squad entirely. But it's two players who've now fell out with personnel, not played, and we've lost them for less money than they should have been, which isn't particularly great in my eyes.
James, before we get onto the statements, I know Ben's got one or two things to say on it. There's been a few times on this podcast where we've run out of superlatives to describe some of his performances. Obviously, that they've tailed off somewhat this season. But how do we summarise Morgan Whittaker's time in an Argyle shirt on the whole? And is there going to be a time when we look back on it and actually think, he was absolutely brilliant, and we get over this little blip?
Yeah, I think when we're having the kind of season that we're having, it tarnishes almost everything it touches in a way, and it certainly what we've seen from Whittaker this year is obviously. I mean, still, if you actually look at his 2024 figures, there I can't remember what the numbers are off the top of my head, but they are still good. So he's still produced where others haven't this calendar year, which is. That we can pretty much, last calendar year, we can all pretty much agree was an absolute shocker. So he's still performed. He's given us amazing moments. It's a sort of player that people turn to see the incredible moments. So I think when that bitterness and sort of resolves might look back, the fans might look back at it with a bit more of a glass half full approach than previously. I think. That it was certainly benefited of an insane hot streak before last season, where he was outperforming his XG. We spoke about it at length on this podcast. Outperforming his XG, he just hit the perfect sort of combination of his role in the Schumacher team, his talents, being a kind of under the radar player where. Oppositions didn't really know how to handle him, and he was sort of going under the radar. And obviously, those performances, as spoken about at length last week, have dropped off as teams have got wise to him. So perhaps that's revised his fee to a certain extent, as well as the sort of obvious Argyle tax and obviously the underlying performances under Rooney and this season. So I think we should look back positively when the hurt sort of dissipates, but. A great serve, but someone who creates some incredible moments for the club.
Yeah, just seeing him link up again with Finn Azaz is, I think that's the most heartbreaking thing for me, and especially if Bally goes there as well. Christ, I think I would just become a Middlesbrough fan. It'd just be easier, wouldn't it? Like
I saw a tweet that said, "Oh, why didn't we think of that?" Which made me laugh. We did. That was the linchpin of a absolutely fantastic. Small, all too short period of this club. So at this level, painful.
He's absolutely going to sing as well. Like now he's not going to be double marked. Now they've got Ben Doak and Finn Azaz and Latte Lath and whatever. They can't just stick two men on him. And oh god, yeah.
To be fair, every Argyle fan should hope he does, because the quicker we'll get a sell-on fee and the bigger it will be. As much as I love a good footballing grudge. We should all be hoping Whittaker absolutely smashes it at Borough, because it's the best thing for Argyle. As much as it would be funny if he is a massive flop.
Yeah, it's a win-win, isn't it? Brilliant. Unless he's just gonna run the middle of the road now, isn't he? Like, brilliant, great. Moving on to the statement, Ben, Matt Lee on Twitter says, ironically, the last 3 weeks at Argyle would have made a really good documentary, wouldn't it? Bloody hell, that'd have been some great viewing. I'd love that on Netflix. Morgan Whittaker has issued a statement via Instagram, which he only joined a couple of days ago, so maybe it's not even his, stating that it was pre-agreed that he would miss the Burnley game. I'm not going to read it all. He says, I've always made myself available for selection. I've always trained, and I have always, in capitals, given my all for Plymouth. I even trained happily the next day. I will not let that tarnish my time here. Although I can imagine he wrote this whilst in Middlesbrough, so there. And I want to thank all of you, the staff, the players, the fans, for your incredible support during my time here. Some of the most magical and integral parts of my career happened here with Plymouth, in which I will be forever grateful for. Thoughts on the statement?
So I had some thoughts, because it seems like people are jumping to the conclusion that this doesn't mesh at all with what Muslic said. And I just, and the reason you said a second ago, I've got some thoughts on it, is because we had this discussion in the group chat, and there were some who completely, I say some, there was someone who completely wasn't having any of it. And I think I and both Sam were sort of saying, well, actually, there's quite an easy way to reconcile the two sides of this story. And just if I can paint you someone says that Plymouth, not Argyle. It's like, I think a lot of players call us Plymouth, but regardless, it does seem very much like it's been written by his agent, or maybe Morgan said it to someone and they've sort of doctored it into their words. It sounded a bit stilted. I will agree with that. It certainly doesn't seem like a natural expression. That statement, that is for sure. I'll agree with that. But I've got no agenda here in either absolving Morgan Whittaker of anything, or sticking up for Miran Muslic, or but just to make it make sense, because people are saying it doesn't make sense. Whittaker said in that statement that everyone knew, including the players, that he wasn't available for selection and that he trained the next day. Now, that's two really stupid things to put in a statement if they aren't true, because they're really easily disprovable. Any of the squad and the staff can be like, no, you weren't, or no, we didn't know that. So if that's true, it doesn't mesh with the interpretation of Muslic's statement that he didn't show up to mean that he, without communication, didn't turn up for the game, having been selected to start in the first team. I think, and in fact, it's noteworthy that when Chris Errington tried to clarify what Muslic meant by didn't show up, he just, he didn't. He just repeated, didn't show up. And so that's a phrase that can mean a number of things. So what I suspect is most likely to have happened is in training, Muslic has said to Whittaker, or maybe even before this, but in some form, he's gone to Whittaker, like, Morgan, this is what I want you to do tomorrow. And Morgan said, I don't really want to play with all these links around. My head's not in the right place, etc., etc. And Muslic has said, fine, if you don't want to play, then I only want players who are committed. Go and play with the lads who aren't, go and train with the lads who aren't playing in the squad. And off he'd have gone and trained with those lads, and everyone, where's Morgan gone? He does want to play, lads. And then there's that attitude there from Rands, from Joe Edwards saying, I don't know, why he's not made himself available. It's disappointing. But as far as Morgan's concerned, there's been an agreement there. He can say in his statement, there's been an agreement that I wouldn't play, even though the manager wanted him to be in the starting 11. So Muslic can say, no, he was in the 11 and he didn't turn up, by which you might not mean he wasn't physically in the building, or, it just means he didn't make himself available. He didn't want to show up. He didn't make, we talk about players not showing up even though they play. The players didn't turn up today. But they obviously did turn up because they played for 90 odd minutes. What we mean is they didn't, stand up and be counted, which is what I think Muslic might have meant. And he also might have been required to maybe turn up on time, even though he wasn't playing and didn't bother. It's kind of like, the wife could say to me, I don't love you anymore, I want to leave. And you say, okay, well, I think you maybe, should take the kids and or go and get a flat somewhere. And then she tells people, oh, we agreed to split up. And I say, the wife left me. But in a sense, both our interpretations of the situation are true. And that's a bit dark. But you see where I'm coming from? Like Whittaker said, well, everyone knew I wasn't playing because I was playing. I was training with the lads who weren't playing in the game. And I turned up to training the next day. Now, if he had literally, with no communication, not turned up and just sort of rocked up to the stadium with half an hour to go, there's no way he would have been allowed to come into training the next day. He would have been sent home, fined. So the fact that he can say that kind of makes me feel like, I'm not saying there's two sides to the story, that either of them are necessarily true, but ultimately I feel like it doesn't really matter anymore. I mean, I think some people are desperate to cling on to some semblance that maybe Whittaker's been wronged here. And if I was Whittaker and sort of I'd been misrepresented that way, then maybe we're right. If Finley Allen with an in-joke from the pod chat there, I'm sure it's frustrating for Whittaker if he feels like he's been misrepresented, but it's the chat is derailing me. You got Aaron, stop it. I'm trying to make a point here that both sides of this argument can hold some water. Now, if the club come out and say, no, he didn't, he didn't turn up for training, he didn't say this, he didn't say that, then fine. Obviously he's telling the porkies. But it might be that there's some truth to it, but ultimately it doesn't really matter. It's done now. It's water under the bridge. Yes, it'll probably matter to Morgan Whittaker, sadly, if he feels like he's been hung out to dry or been misrepresented. But for the rest of us, it's kind of done now, isn't it? And we need to just focus on the players we got here, and maybe, just maybe, it'll make the team, without a star man in the team, everyone else will stand that a little bit taller. And it would be exciting in a sense to see a team without Morgan Whittaker in it being the bearing the load of the responsibility for scoring the goals. It's going to be interesting to see a team where everybody can be the star man on their day.
Yeah, I think people always tell me, Ben, that I'm should grow up and not laugh at the comments. So congratulations for managing that. We've got 8 days left of the transfer window now. James and Sam, I don't know who wants this, but where the bloody hell was that question? JRRB says, question for the panel: what's better, finding a formation that suits the players or playing a preferred formation regardless of the players available? Lots of the latter this season. I think Whittaker moving on sort of frees us up to play this Muslic style a bit better, doesn't it? And obviously with 8 days of the window left, what's needed? What do we need to do?
Yeah, and I just want to very quickly say on the Whittaker incident first. I just think that often there's a lot of
question. Just crack on.
No, well, I think there's a lot of tension. You've always got to find a hero or a villain. Most situations in life with conflict are a little bit of grey. And ultimately, like as Ben adequately explained, it isn't always that case where it has to be one or the other. It can be that they're both telling the truth. I certainly absolutely don't think it's likely that Whittaker was meant to be in the starting 11, because somebody would have come out and contradicted that. But do I think maybe he was going to be on the bench? That's a rumor that's gone around Twitter, maybe. But, it could have been a bit of miscommunication, bit of misunderstanding, whatever. Probably the worst case scenario is if he refused to appear on the bench, which isn't great, but he was never down to be starting anyway. It wouldn't have made an impact on the game. So there we go. I just think that whatever's happened now, I hope that once the dust has settled, we can then remember sort of the good times that we've had with him, and that hopefully he doesn't get horrific abuse next time. Because ultimately, I want to make the point I made on Twitter. At Hillsborough on the opening day, Michael Cooper was dropped for Conor Hazard on supposedly footballing grounds, which, as much as Conor Hazard has been all right this season, I don't think there's a sane person in the world who would have him over Mike Cooper. And
to be fair, it was on footballing grounds. He was at a different one.
Very good. Well, no, he wasn't good. He was on the bench. Very, very funny. And then obviously Lewis Gibson on New Year's Day. Oh, he had a 5 straight. Come on. No, he didn't. We always did that knock a player. It's got a little knock or a dead leg or something, So what if that is true? Why is Whittaker so much worse than Cooper or Gibson, who we agree don't deserve a lot of abuse? That's all I'm going to say on it. But I can see that some people in the comment putting and all that. People are fed up of talking about it. So fine, whatever. But I think in this world we live in, people are so keen for there to be one bad guy, and most situations are a bit of a shade of grey. So that's fine. I'll move on and go from there. Sorry, January transfer window. Yes, indeed, that was the question, wasn't it? Which I completely hijacked. We've got 8 days left. We have so far brought in 2 players. We have sold 2 players. We've let 3, if you include Morosi, 3 players have gone on free transfers, and we've only brought in 2. So we're 3 players down on what we were at the start of the window, and we've had Brendan Galloway long-term injured now as well. So. And we needed to add players to our squad anyway. So goodness knows, we'll see. I think realistically, we probably, in terms of what we need to really have a full strength, normal size squad, we genuinely need about 7 or 8 new additions. In reality, I reckon we'll get maybe 3 or 4. Absolutely going to be 2 centre backs. Got to be. Certainly, if Plegaswell has also picked up a knock, he looked a little bit gingerly at the end of the game. And got to be probably at least 1 central midfielder, even though we have this Randell and Houghton renaissance. Which is kind of funny. I tweeted it. Every time we sort of try and do something a bit experimental or bring in a new central midfielder, we always seem to keep coming back to Randell and Houghton. That's because nobody we brought in has actually been better than those 2. Maybe that will finally change, and maybe we finally will bring in a top quality CM who can go ahead of one or even both of them in the pecking order. But maybe not. And we absolutely need one attacking player. I saw a comment from somebody saying that we should bring back another player who Sam doesn't like, which is Ben Waine. And actually, you know what? I might surprise you here. I actually think if we are going to really go bare minimum this window and save money for the summer for the League One rebuild, we might not be the worst thing to bring back Ben Waine just as a backup option. If it means we have more, Aaron does not agree from the fact he's shaking his head. But if we have,
we're talking about how Hardie doesn't exactly fit this system, and Tijani does, and you just want somebody that's Hardie.
He's statistically worse in the air than Hardie is. So if Hardie's struggling to do this, then Ben Waine is not the answer.
And he's out of contract at the end of the season as well, right? So it's not even like we're blooding him in the Championship to get money for him.
No, but I don't know. I just think that if we're not going to bring a striker in, we could be really short. And comment coming up from Richard Sloman, is there any Argyle player or manager that Sam has hated? Well, look, I want to say, first of all, hated is a very, very strong word. There's certainly been many that I don't feel are good enough at this level. As I hope you have heard listening this season, certainly Ian Foster and Wayne Rooney in terms of two managers.
Head coaches.
So I guess maybe, I think the last thing, I'm a happy clappy fan. If anything, I think I'm probably, now that Finn is retired from the podcast, probably the most negative on here, if anything. But I do think that hating people it's not a good thing to do. It's a very strong word, and unless somebody is completely disrespecting the club and completely stamping over the club for their own gain, I don't think I would hate any of them. No, that's probably true. But certainly, I don't think it's good to vilify and whip up a social media storm. But if you think that means that I'm always positive about everybody, then I don't think you could have been watching too much. But I know you have watched a lot, Richard, so that may have been a turn of phrase. But I don't hate managers or players. No, very few of them.
Sam's got loads of digs to Schumacher in the group chat. Really not a big fan of Steven Schumacher, are you?
I used to have an irrational hatred
for... I might get in trouble either way, can I? So I'll shut up.
No, you can't. You can't. I used to have an irrational hatred, obviously not Argyle related, for Claudia Winkleman, and I have absolutely no idea why. Just couldn't stand her. And then, obviously, since the traitors, I think she's all right, so I'm over it. So yeah, you're right, Sam. Shouldn't really hate anyone. James, transfer window. What's needed?
We went through them. Obviously, massive bolstering of defence is absolutely mission critical. We don't even have enough players to cover positions we need. Muslic obviously wants to play free at the back. He'll do anything to play free at the back at the moment. So with the players out, hopefully Souks is back. I mean, I don't know if anyone's heard an update that I've missed, but surely it's only a couple of weeks away. But we need at least one minimum. Any sense says two. Well, centre mid. We need reinforcements all over the pitch, and they need to be in the Muslic style and mould of player that we want. But obviously, part of rock bottom through the week was the fact that we can't seem to attract the talent that's on our list, because most players who come at the level that we desire come here with the implicit aim of putting themselves in the shop window in the Championship. Getting into experience of English football at Championship level. Who actually spoken about that exact thing, and he sort of shifted extremely nervously in his seat in the press conference when they talked about whether we would exercise the option to buy at the end of the season, and sort of said, "Well, not sure about that at all." So the fact is that we're not. We talk about, Sam mentioned signing a great centre mid that really makes us better. I don't know who we're going to attract at the moment, because we're not going to be a Championship side for much longer. And the caliber of player that we're looking through Europe for or trying to attract domestically is going to be looking to play Championship football next season. So it puts us in a very, very difficult position. I have a sinking feeling we're not going to get the reinforcements we need this window. If we're trying to tick the boxes of quality going forward, thinking about next season, the style of play that we're trying to build for, the mentality of player that we want, and seemingly return to the personality aspect, without swearing on the pod, that we sort of held in great esteem, we should return to after some of the signings we've made this season, and the sort of implosion in squad morale and unity that's followed. So given that we've got quite a a long list of requirements, and then we're not going to be we're very, very, very unlikely to hold our championship status, I'm not optimistic we're going to be able to complete our shopping list this January.
Yeah, I completely agree. And also, like, you need to bring in players that are not going to be completely demoralised for getting battered if we do go down. So
I think the transfer window has like quietly been the biggest issue going on at the minute with all the Whittaker stuff. I think it's kind of taken away from the fact that this transfer window's really, really sucked. Like, we could have had players lined up early doors, and I know the club likes to play it safe, play it sensible, and try and get good value for money, but we're in a position where at the very start of the window we could have done with players in almost immediately, and if we have to pay over the odds in terms of fees and wages, then that's the case. Now it's a bit too late. I think with the QPR and Burnley games, like James says, we're now in damage limitation, trying to bring in players who are happy to fight till the end of the season and then push back up for a promotion run next season rather than survival options. And I think that's evident in there was a suggestion, wasn't there, that we were offering a pay cut with relegation, and it's sort of like that's the sort of deal you want to get signed and agreed right before the start of the window, not when you all of a sudden go on a really sticky run and someone can say, actually, that doesn't look very attractive at all. So I feel like we might have been a bit naive as a club. I mean, I'd love to be proved wrong and we see sort of 6 players come through the door. Great, I'll eat my words. Absolutely happy to. But it really looks like this has been really badly handled, and what could have been a fighting chance is now looking like a rebuild job, either now or in the summer.
The timing of the window has just been the sacking Rooney when we did. Then taking it's like putting an advert in the Western Morning News for a manager and then going through a 2-week interview process when we could have just tapped someone on the shoulder and brought them in, knowing what we were going to do. And then the fact, I never think I've ever seen such a massive bin fire as a transfer window is we can't even get rid of the loan signings we seemingly don't want to use anymore. So we haven't got any loan spots to sort of plug holes in the squad, and no one wants to come and play. And unless we sort of look for League Two's finest, who are happy to come to the Championship, get the experience, and then happy to fight in League One, knowing there's a strong chance we would put together a automatic or playoff run next season, then that's obviously I think seemingly some of the rumours are that pointing that might be our strategies for attracting players that are going to take 1 or 2 steps up and be part of a strong challenging team next season. But the previous iteration of the transfer strategy, which was to go around looking at sort of Europe's forgotten finest in sort of Europa Conference sort of teams around Europe wanting to get into English football, looks like an absolutely non-starter because they won't want to drop down to Championship level.
I think we should just do a deal with Circular where they take our whole squad and we take theirs. Just do a little test to see how good the Belgian league is. See if Victor. Oh no, I was going to say if Victor Polsey could stay up, but he can't. So he's proven that. Yeah, brilliant. Maybe they won't want him. Obviously, as well, we have to caveat that clubs will know that we've got this 6 to 8 million now as well, so the prices go up. So that's fun. Has anybody got anything else to add, or can we call that a night?
I saw us linked with Cipriano earlier in the window, and I saw he's now been linked with Coventry, which is fun. So there was one that I was hoping might come through, but doesn't look likely now. So it's getting desperate.
As well, are famously good at pulling our pants down for players as well, aren't they? So
we've got to get a few in, haven't we? Because look, there's a school of thought that says we're already as good as down, therefore save most of the focus to the summer. But we've still got to get a few in. Because if we get players in now who are part of the long-term plan, get them embedded, get them up to the Muslic way of playing before next season. Or and B, just because if we don't, then we're going to struggle to fulfill fixtures without playing youth team games. And if we're getting absolutely battered in every game, that's going to lose confidence. It's going to lose the relationship between the club and the fans. It's going to have a detrimental impact on season ticket sales, etc. So yes, you almost certainly are going down, but we cannot just wave the white flag entirely. We've got to get some players in who are going to at least make us competitive in games like we were yesterday. Even if we'd have lost, I was still gearing myself up to come onto the podcast and be happy and positive because we were competitive. So we've got to do that. We can't just wave the white flag. Because if we're playing about, 3 or 4 youth team players and, whoever else in every game are getting absolutely thumped 3-0, 4-0 every week, we've absolutely got to be doing better than that. So at least get 3 or 4 in. I think more like 8 really we need in if we can. And the point about recalling Wayne wasn't because I think it necessarily be great. If we don't get another striker in, and we need to use the loan slots elsewhere on the pitch, because we're going to surely be sending back Ogbeta if we can agree to the terms with Burnley. We may well even send back Sissoko because he's not been playing at all regularly. So if we free up 2 loan slots, maybe use one of them at centre back, maybe one of them central midfield, possibly. I think that we need a striker, and ideally we can get a top quality striker in. But we know how tough a market it is. If we could agree some kind of fee with Mansfield for the settlement of Ben Wayne's loan of a very nominal level, it might be better than having nobody in at all, just because then that's a lot of pressure on Hardie and Tijani. So we'll see how it goes. I'm not necessarily dying to see Ben Wayne play for us again. Statistically, he's not great in the air, but he is a very hard worker, very hard presser.
Yeah, moving on. Yeah, okay. You've had enough on Ben Wayne. Moving on. We've all got beds to get to at some point tonight, Sam. Although a big fan of that comment last week that says I always ask you questions and then cut across you sarcastically. So, and yes, I do, because you chat things like giving Ben Wayne a chance in the Championship. As much as I love him as a person, no. Last question, or second to last question. I don't know who wants this, but Rob73 says, green tinted glasses on, gents. How would staying up this season rank against our past achievements? And also had a question via DM from Nick of PAFC Displays earlier, saying, would us staying up be the greatest Championship escape of all time? Same
I think
question.
given the state of our squad, yeah, I mean, it's not that we're so massively adrift that it's desperate, because you can claw back sort of 6 or 7 or 8 points, but it's the state of our squad. Like we've said, we've lost Gray, we've lost Gibson, our best centre back. We've lost Galloway, arguably our second best centre back, to injury. So effectively, you've lost both ends of the team, the spine. We've got 2 decent, maybe 3 if you include JB, decent options for Muslic style of play in the middle. We need, if we were to do it on this squad with everyone being absolutely exhausted, with no one else sort of much coming in, or those that do come in needing to adapt to the style, etc., it would be a really impressive feat. I mean, I don't know if it's the best ever, because Sam's the one to sort of call up, there was that time in 1970, all of that stuff. But in my recent memory that I can think of, I don't think even the Sheffield Wednesday and QPR of last season wouldn't look as good as us doing it this year, because it would require that there's so many obstacles for us to overcome. If we were to do it, it would be a really, like, I just can't see it happening. Really, there's just so much that needs to align. Everyone staying fit, etc., etc., etc. So, yeah,
Even if we did do it, it would be completely downplayed by national media, and everybody would forget that we've done it anyway. So, what's the point? Just don't do it. Just go down. Just go and enjoy League One again.
I completely agree. Just to quickly say, Sheffield Wednesday and QPR were more points adrift at one station than we are now, but they had far more time and also a far better squad and far better budget in all instances. Yeah, look, positive signs from Miran Muslic yesterday. If we can do it, somehow can do it, it will be, I think, the best survival of any manager at this level, certainly in recent memory. I cannot think anything that would come close to it, in all honesty, barring if we go back, like you say, decades, like Ben alludes to.
And if we hadn't won the season against with Wednesday and Ipswich just a couple of years ago, you'd arguably say it was the best Argyle achievement in living memory, really. But I think it maybe that 101 points probably takes it, but that's how big it would be, I reckon.
101 points with a mid-table budget will probably never be beaten for like ridiculous Argyle achievements, but it would be like surprisingly close. I would agree with that.
Absolutely. Last question. I think it's for me. Rob says, looking at your merch site, what are you going to do with all that new Whittaker stuff? Yeah, I need a bit of a clear out on there. There's a few players that need to go. Might stop doing player specific stuff, but if you want the player specific stuff, that's all going to transfer over to PAFC Displays' own site. Give them a little hand, give them a little plug as well. It's just easier. It means I don't have to transfer their money. So you can just buy direct from them. And as for the Whittaker stuff, I'm still wearing it because it's incredibly comfy. I'm just hiding it from view. So yeah, I just won't wear it to games. I'll just wear it around the house. And I think we'll call that a night. Yeah. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Follow us on Twitter, Blue Sky, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and on all your major podcast platforms. And then yeah, I think that's is that how I end the show? And then I just click end, and then we just do